alternative sounds of the 90s. Here we go!
Welcome, my friends, to Alternative Sounds of the 90s with me, Derm O'Leary, and this week it's an Oasis live special. So if you're going to see them this summer, this will whet your appetite. If you didn't get tickets, this is a much cheaper way to experience Oasis live. Though I will be implementing dynamic presenting. The more of you listening, the less I talk. Now, fortunately in the 90s, it was a thing for bands to release loads of live tracks on B-sides, EPs and bonus songs on CDs. So we thought we'd have a wonderful selection to choose from until we listened through and had to discount all those with Liam swearing. So this is basically what's left.
Time to make some sense of what you want to say. Cast your words away upon the way. Sail home with acquiescence on a ship of hope today. And as they land upon the shore, tell them not to fear no more. Say it loud and sing it proud today. Of all the things that come our way, everything that's been is past. The answer's in your looking glass. There's $420 million on life's endless corridor. So say it loud, sing it proud, and they they'll dance if they wanna dance. Please, brother, take a chance. You know they're gonna go which way they wanna go.
the master plan from their record-breaking gig at Nebworth. More on which later, but let's go back to Glasgow right at the start of it all. Sadly, not for their famous King Tut's gig, but their first visit back to the city, 1 year on from being spotted by Alan McGee. They played Glasgow's Tramshed in April '94, a week before their debut single Supersonic came out. They were supporting the Boo Radleys as part of 1FM's Sound City. And if you listen closely at the end, you can hear Joe Wiley on stage. They did 5 songs, and get this for a statement of intent: Cigarettes and Alcohol, Digsy's Dinner, Live Forever, Shaker Maker, and finish with their debut single, Supersonic.
City. There's your proof. Quite brilliant. Put your hands together for Oasis.
Supersonic from Glasgow's Tramshed, April 94. And thank you, Joe. Imagine being there for that. So that was April 94. Supersonic came out a week later, and then Definitely Maybe came out at the end of August, going straight to numero uno. There was a UK tour that summer, with venues getting bigger and bigger, plus lots of festivals, including Glastonbury, Tea in the Park, and a quick trip to Europe to do Hamburg and Amsterdam back to back. What was their tour booker thinking? In September, they flew to Japan for a handful of dates, where Noel recorded this classic in his bedroom.
I would like to leave this city. This old town don't smell too pretty, and I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. And if I could leave this island, I'd book myself into a soul asylum, 'cause I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. Here I go, I've been scratching around in the same old hole. My body feels young, but my mind is very old. So what do you say? You can give me the dreams that are mine anyway. You have the world away. You have the world away. You have the world away. I've been lost, I've been found, but I don't feel down. And when I leave this planet, you know I'd stay, but I just can't stand it. And I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. And when I leave my spirit, I find me a hole and I live in it. And I can feel the warning signs running around my mind. Here I go, I've been scratching around in the same old hole. My body feels young, but my mind is very old. What do you say? You can't give me the dreams that are mine anyway. You have the world away. You have the world away. You have the world away. I've been lost, I've been found, but I don't feel down. No, I don't feel down.
Half the World Away, which ended up as the B-side to Whatever. Now, after Japan, they headed to America. But what followed almost wrecked the band. A disastrous gig at LA's Whiskey A Go-Go with special guests Crystal Meth meant the band struggled to play in time and led to an on-stage altercation between Liam and Noel. Liam attacked Noel and abused the American audience. Noel quit the band, but he was talked into returning a few weeks later to finish the US tour before they went straight on to France. Now, one aspect of touring we don't often get to see is all the other live stuff bands do when promoting their records. As soon as they land in the country, it's a succession of TV, radio and in-store performances, most often stripped down, jet-lagged and hungover. This is a record store performance in Paris in '94. Now, for all of you born in the noughties, a record store is a shop where people would go and buy CDs. Okay, CDs are like playlists on a round bit of metal that you put in a machine and listen to in your bedroom until your parents bang on the ceiling and ask you to turn it down.
This one's called Shaker Maker.
Driving in my car with my friend Mr. Soft, Mr. Clean and Mr. Ben are living in my loft. Shake along with me. Shake along with me, yeah. Shake along with me. 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 Mercy.
Shaker Maker from an acoustic in-store in Paris. The Definitely Maybe tour, all in all, was 143 shows in just over a year, and it was the last to feature original drummer Tony McCarroll. There were lots of falling outs and altercations leading to frequent cancellations. But when you look at their workload, it's hardly surprising. Those of you who have been on a stag or hen do, which lasts more than 2 days, will know how tempers can start to fray. So imagine being at a 143-day stag do with Liam. 1994 finished with a massive UK tour in December, which included this homecoming show at Manchester's Academy.
Come on. Is it my imagination? I haven't finally found something worth living for. Love ya. I was looking for some action, but all I found was cigarettes and alcohol. You could wait for a lifetime to spend your days in the sunshine. Your mind is way to the white line, 'cause when it comes on top, you've gotta make it happen. 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 Is it worth the aggravation to find yourself a job and there's nothing worth working for? It's a crazy situation, but all I need are cigarettes and alcohol before it comes out different. You could wait for a lifetime to spend your days in the sunshine. Your mind is well to the white line, 'cause when it comes on top, you've gotta make it happen. 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 You've gotta make it. You've gotta make it. You've gotta make it. You've gotta make it.
Cigarettes and alcohol taken from their gig at Manchester's Academy, finishing off 1994 in style. If you want any more Oasis-related content, I've released another 90s show based on all the bands they've played with over the years. From 18-Wheeler at the famous King Tut's gig, through to The Verve, Cast and The Manics, all here on BBC Sounds. 1995 was yet more touring, 4 months in America from January to April. Then they had a short break before giving the honour of headlining Glastonbury in 95 after just one album. Looking back at the setlist now, it's filled with classics. But as What's the Story Morning Glory wasn't out till autumn, most were hearing future classics like Don't Look Back in Anger for the very first time. Many would have chosen that moment to go for a wee. So on the night, it was tracks from Definitely Maybe that really hit home. Like this.
I'm back, live forever. Like I said, that's if you want to, yeah? Maybe I don't really wanna know just wanna fly. Lately, did you ever feel that pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone? And maybe I just wanna fly, wanna live but don't wanna die. Maybe I just wanna breathe. Maybe I just don't believe. Maybe you're the same as me. We see things I've never seen. So maybe I don't really wanna know the guiding grounds, 'cause I just wanna fly. Lately, did you ever feel that pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone? Maybe I will never be all the things that I'd like to be. Now it's not the time to cry. Now's the time to find out what I think you're the same as me. We'll see things I've never seen. I don't really wanna know your guiding grounds, 'cause I just wanna fly. Lately, did you ever feel that pain in the morning rain as it soaks you to the bone? Maybe I just wanna fly, wanna live but don't wanna die. Maybe I just wanna breathe. Maybe I just don't believe. Maybe you're the same as me. We'll see things I've never seen. We gotta live forever. We gotta live forever. We gotta live forever. We gotta live forever.
Oasis headlined the Pyramid Stage in '95. And if you want more Glasgow shows from the 90s, I've made a show based on the legendary NME stage there, which played host to all the great indie bands of the era. Just search Derm at 90s. Now, Glastonbury was effectively the start of the Morning Glory Tour. 103 dates, 103 more stag do's with Liam. A month after the album came out, Oasis played London's Earl's Court to 20,000 people and opened up with this, another B-side. Acquiesce from the November 95 Earls Court gig. 96 was probably peak Oasis. A year on the road with two exceptional albums filling the set list. This one is taken from the legendary Main Road concert in April 96. Now, I remember chatting to Noel on my Real Stories TV show about it, and he said, everyone's saying you can't play outdoors in Manchester in April. It'll rain. And I was like, it rains in August. What's the difference? And they said, well, it'll be freezing. And I said, well, wear a coat. It's hard to argue with that logic. One of my favourites, Cast No Shadow from Main Road. And yes, it did rain, but that didn't bother the crowd. It just meant bucket hat sales went through the roof. Later that summer, they created history, playing 2 nights at Nebworth to a crowd of 125,000 people a night. Remember, this is before online booking, so you had to phone up ticket lines or buy them in person from official outlets. Demand was so high, they could have sold out for 18 nights. The guest list alone was 7,000 people, including Kate Moss, Jarvis Cocker, Chris Evans, Martine McCutcheon, Anna Friel and Mick Hucknall. Here is a standout moment, one of many.
Dream of you.
An iconic moment from Nebworth. Later that month, Oasis recorded the legendary MTV Unplugged, following in the footsteps of their idols Neil Young, Nirvana and Soul Asylum. Liam didn't show up properly for rehearsals, complaining of a sore throat. On the day, he turned up drunk and unable to sing. So Noel assumed legendary status and took on the frontman duties. Liam was seen during the performance up in a balcony, of course, heckling Noel. At the end of the show, the producer told Noel they needed to redo one song. Liam then decided he wanted to sing it. Noel recalled, after we played for an hour and a half or something, we told him to naff off. Not entirely sure he used the word naff. And he went home sulking.
The paper boy's working before he goes, lying to the teacher who knows he knows he didn't, and he should have wrote his lines in yesterday. And then he bangs the sound as the day begins. The letterbox was open, your cash files in. I'll meet you at the office just before the staff clock in. And around the park, it's 25 aside, but before it's dark, there's gonna be a loser, and you know the next goal wins. We cab it to the front, and it's called a draw. Everybody's knocking at yours once more. Ernie bangs the sound, but no one's spoken since 4:30. La 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 la. Round down where the birds are singing. You wanna be me? Well, that couldn't be. I said, hey you, wearing your crown, you're making no sound. I heard you feel down. Hey you, stealing the lines. I heard that the shine's gone out of your
Noel on lead vocals for the legendary MTV Unplugged in August 96. Later that year, the band broke up again for a brief time, with several US dates and the entire Australia and New Zealand legs being cancelled. The Be Here Now tour kicked off in 97 and was just the 85 dates, taking in the US, South America, Europe, China, Australia and the UK.
I may not be around till it all falls
Stand By Me from the Be Here Now tour. So there we go, a brief history of Oasis gigs in the 90s. And if you're going this summer, wear a coat and a bucket hat. If you've missed any of my recent alternative 90s shows, they're all there on BBC Sounds. Just search Derm at 90s. And I'm on Radio 2 every Saturday morning from 8.
This is Radio 2
on BBC Sounds
and on your smart speaker.
Play BBC Radio 2.